This is the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, we interview leading local business leaders to inspire the vision and spirit that is in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque.
Yo, this is Jason Rigby, Albuquerque Business Podcast. So excited today. I'm in the studios of 99.9 The BFM. I've got Sam. What's up, Sam?
Hey, what's going on?
And we're going to talk today. We're going to get into gratitude. We're going to get into energy. We're going to get into awareness. It's not going to be this crazy, like, super religious thing, so don't cut us off right now. But I do want to thank 99.9 The Beat FM. If you own a business and you're in the Albuquerque area, take that radio station, support local. It is a local, not-for-profit, minority-owned radio station. We would love to get the awareness out there for this radio station. So stream it. It's got old school hip-hop on it, from LL Cool J to Aretha Franklin. Also, I want to thank my sponsorship, DukeCityMarketing.com. If you're looking for SEO and you've tried different companies, maybe you've had like the generic cookie cutter and you didn't rank where you want to be, we do local SEO, DukeCityMarketing.com. It's more boutique. It's more geared to exactly who you want to target in the exact neighborhoods here in Albuquerque. We'd love to help you with that. Go to www.DukeCityMarketing.com. Well, Sam, I'm so excited to have you on. You have a podcast. You
Yes.
Not only have a podcast, but you're writing a book.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is exciting. So tell me a little bit about it. It's called PRA.
Yes, so it's the PRA podcast. The reason why it's called PRA is because I've always had a theme on progression. Like, progression has always been like the theme of my life. I never really had a lot growing up, had kids early on, so very hard, as a 19-year-old, father. So the one thing that I could always rely on was, one, adversity and progression. Like, I could always just focus on the next challenge, and I could always try to get better at life and try to be able to provide for my kids in whatever way possible to just get better.
Do you have two kids, or?
So I have two kids, yeah.
Okay,
my
perfect.
he's going to be 8 this year, and my daughter is going to be 5. Basically, like, the way that it all kind of came together was, it's the PRA podcast, or potential, reach, and aggression. And it's kind of a play on words, progression, PRA.
Oh, that's
aggression.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's all about progression. But basically what it is when you unlock your potential, you can locate how far you need to reach, and then you can use relentless aggression to get there, which ultimately is the essence of progression. And as long as you are what I call a progressionist, you're always going to figure out ways, even if it's resting, you're going to figure out the best way to capitalize on the way that you can perform at optimum levels. Like, the most, the best you that you could possibly be. Because if you're not, I've heard this earlier too on a podcast, but like, if you're not fit for service, you can't be of service.
Right.
So it's very important to get your self-awareness in check and know kind of like what your stance is on life. Because if you don't, then that saying, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything.
Right.
That was me for a long time. Like, I was falling for everything, following everybody's advice. And, if somebody gives you advice, it's not always the best advice, especially
Right.
if they love you, you know what I mean? Because they're not going to want to see you fail, so they're going to tell you to do the more comfortable thing.
Right. It's good. I love that.
Yeah, and so, like, I got very kind of, like, I don't want to say fed up, but I felt very alone. And so I was like, you know what? I'm sure everybody's heard of, Gary Vee and
Right,
all that
right.
stuff, the whole, mainstream self-help deals. But he was saying, you could start a podcast, you could do this, you could do that, just to get yourself out there. And that was really how it all started. Was I just wanted to get heard. I just wanted to feel like I could relate to somebody. That's how it all started, man. Like, I whipped out my phone, I just started recording my thoughts, my daily thoughts, and it ultimately turned into me getting interviews with people and progressing as best I can. So.
And before this, you did music?
So yeah, before this, when I was 13 years old, I wrote my first song.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
So you've been an artist your whole life?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Not like a crazy, mainstream artist or anything like that. But I had the intention I had all the intentions in the world of being the best, like, rapper.
So through high school and stuff like that, it was all music?
It was more so like music, but I was very introverted, so I wasn't very open about it. I was like a good student. I was quiet, and then in my spare time, I would write music and record. And then
was it hip hop music? Rap?
It was
Just
mostly
mainly rap?
like rap and hip hop music, because I liked the storytelling more so than everything. They were all about progression, and then they would progress and get to a certain avenue.
Right.
And so I envied that. I liked that. So 2010, I got my first like mixer, and I actually started really like going into like making songs, doing all this stuff, all the audio production. I didn't have any help, and I wasn't open about it, so I was doing everything myself. And then I released, I'd done like maybe thousands of songs, like 300 to 500 songs, if not more, and stuff that I hadn't even released. It was just stuff that I needed to get out.
Right.
Which is where the podcast kind of like came in later. It was kind of the same deal, but I wasn't doing it in song form. I was just speaking my thoughts. But up until, I was still doing it up until this last year, up until maybe 2018, like the end of that. And that was when I really got hit with this bug, because I was so introverted and I was just dealing with rap music. And I'm sure you guys know, the majority of like the rap scene is negative.
Right.
So my ratio was off. Like I was getting more negative than positive. And so it trickled down. And so like I was like not only being introverted and isolated by myself, but I was encouraging like negative things. The only thing I was talking about was positive emotions.
Right.
And since the ratio was off and there wasn't a good enough balance, like it ultimately led me to kind of sabotage myself, because I was like becoming more ignorant and entitled. I was basically feeding my ego the entirety of my entire music career. It was like
I wonder why that is, especially in the rap genre. I know struggle is like the theme, the overarching theme, but to make it and what that looks like, on a shallow level is the Rolls Royces, the gold and, all that. And then how you make it, is there a way where it could be positive? How do you see that?
Yeah. So one thing that I noticed is there are certain artists who, if you notice, at first, almost every rapper starts off with like this really negative connotation to life, but it's more so like about the struggle. Like I'm struggling, but it's just very egotistical the way that they kind of, and rap is that way, but it's the one, like the long lasting ones, if you notice, are the ones that show the most humility and admit when they're wrong.
Right.
And are continuing to just get better. Like
right.
are continuing to work on it. So if you notice, like, Drake's music started off as very like clubby, this and that,
right.
like whatever. Now it's like he's making more music that is like everybody knows Drake. From all different, like everybody knows them. Like it's not just the kid.
He's trying to do more, like bring awareness.
Yes, it's not like just the kids in high school anymore who know Drake. Like parents know Drake.
Right.
Like all these people know Drake, and it's because he grew as a person. Like and he showed that throughout his entire career. And even artists that are are very, like Soulja Boy never really showed the humility. He's always just very egotistical. His career never really lifted off other than Crank That. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's the rappers that are able to show off a certain level of humility and be able to admit that they have made mistakes, but are still continuously getting better.
But I mean, don't you think that's what the struggle really is?
Yes, it's just some people, they never transition into that. Like they're just in struggle mode. Like if you're just in struggle mode and you're just in entitlement mode and you're just in ego mode, you're never gonna get it because you might already have it and you don't see it.
Right.
So that's like the thing is like that's what I was doing is I was almost like I was fueling up my ego so much that I almost felt entitled to this big break, if you will. Like, oh, I deserve to be known. I deserve to be heard, this and that. And then ultimately, like anybody who was in my way, I was kind of like very, manipulative towards.
Lots of competition feelings, that emotion,
Yes, and so it was taken away from my family. Like it was taken away from my sense of presence, which is what I
mean, as well as I do, when you're in that moment, nothing really matters but you.
Yeah. Because
it's that ego fueling that. And I think that's something that, as a business owner, you have to look at that too, is like, yeah, it's good to be competitive and all those things, that's healthy. I'm having competition, but the business isn't you.
Exactly. And that was the biggest problem that I had, man, was being present enough to be okay with myself. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people feel like they need to be something. They need to be someone. Instead of just being them and being wholeheartedly who they are, they always feel like, at least for me, I always felt like I needed to prove something, or I needed to, like, I have to start this business. I have to do this music. Why?
Right.
Like, why?
Right.
Why do I feel entitled? Like, why does my ego keep telling me I have to do this? Like, I have to do this. Like, why can't I just be happy with who I am, where I am, with what I am? Because ultimately, like, the thing that I've learned is if you're constantly looking in the past or you're constantly looking in the future, you're either judge your past decisions and try not to make those same mistakes, or you're worried about making those same mistakes in the future and you're worried about how your outcome's looking.
Yeah,
so
worry, guilt, fear. Yeah.
So it's like that. It's that state of presence where, and even the best and most memorable songs were done in the present moment without thinking about future or past or judgment or worry. Martin Luther King, his speeches were in the present moment. He wasn't sitting there like thinking, how is this going to go? Like, I can't make the same mistakes as I did on the last beat. No, he felt the moment and it worked through him. Like it works through these people almost like a muse, and you're just putting it out there.
Right. Their energy, we're going to get into energy later, but that passion, that energy, and then being in the moment, being himself. That's why I go online sometimes and I'll just read his sermons that he has, because it's just, and a lot of people don't understand because he was a pastor. So a lot of people don't understand his message, and then how love was such a central but unconditional love and being unselfish.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get, I don't know about you, but for me, I get into when I'm not in the present moment, like you said, and I'm like past or future, then I get into, I was having this conversation last night with someone, I get into defense mode.
Yes.
I get into manipulation. I get into always having this feeling, and I think this is what you were talking about, always having this feeling somebody's against me.
Yes.
And I need to not just defend myself, but not only am I going to defend myself and set up big walls, I'm going to throw grenades out while I'm hiding in my little, I was in the Marine Corps, so I'm going to, hiding in my little
bunker.
Cocoon, But I don't just hide in a cocoon. I want to destroy things around me, and I know, ego can be good in certain things, but I know when I get to that level, I'm very sharp and manipulative. And I know a lot of people, you business owners that are out there, you can do this. You have to be careful. You can take people down the wrong way. You can convince them to follow you, and you can follow them down such a wrong path because your intention is not to help them. And that's what I love about your network, your podcast. Your intention is not to help them. Your intention is to manipulate them, to create something that you want to create, where they can help you create so much abundance if you will pour yourself into them first.
Yes. And it's that sense that you're talking about, that unconditional love.
Right.
Because, love is, it's funny. I read this book called The Love Worth Giving. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, by Max Lucado.
Yes. Yeah. He's like a Lutheran minister or something.
Yes. Yeah. So, man, he was talking about, unconditional love is like, it's the overall truth, and truth is the highest vibration, man. Like if you think about just energy in general and vibration and frequency, and even me and you, you can sense that vibe, what I mean? Right. And it's that sense of just good intentions. It's that sense that's why you don't vibe with certain people that are bad for you. You know what I mean? Like if the unconditional love is not there, if somebody is trying to change you because it fits them or because it like advances them or benefits them in some way, that's not love. That's not truth. Truth is literally letting somebody, fall on their own if they need to, but being there whenever and being able to show them the right and wrong things and be able to let them make their own decisions. Not try to change somebody, but allow them to change by seeing what you're able to become within yourself.
Yeah, and I think, and I want to get into a story here, but that just happened to me before I came here. So this is right on target. This is funny how it works. Just like what you said with love sometimes doesn't mean you just giving in all the time and letting someone, or something, whatever it may be, take control of you or abuse you. Or, there are people out there that love to play the victim mentality, and they stay in that, and they use this aggression from others to, one, I think most of all, to give them identity so they don't even know who they are. Yeah. Their identity is in them. And then number two, I think more than importantly than everything, it makes them feel wanted in some weird way.
Yeah, it's almost like you're feeding the other part of that ego.
Yes.
It's like the people who, it's funny because the people who coddle you and the people who feel sorry for you are the people who are doing it.
Right.
It's like they're the ones who are initializing and strengthening that victimization within yourself.
Right.
It's like, oh, woe is me. Like, oh man. And then you get into that whole like, oh, the world evolves around me because I don't have this or blah. And then you start playing the blame game, and you're not being very accountable for yourself and for your own past decision making, because ultimately, like, where you are right now is predicated on any decision that you've made in the past.
That's so good.
It's not like somebody made you do something. It's not like somebody, you know what I mean? There are cases where you are forced to do things against your will, I guess.
Or
but
something.
Then again, like, you could have, you didn't have to do it.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a very good subject to be. I used to do that a lot. I used to be the victim. Like, I used to act like the victim. Like, oh man, like, and again, feeding that entitlement. Like, because I would just feel sorry for myself. And I'm like, why am I going to pity myself? Nobody else. Like, the only people who are giving me that sense of fuel for more pity is the people below me. Like, the people who are not who aren't doing what I want to do, or the people who are in the same exact spot that they were. And it wasn't until, like, I realized that the people who are pushing me to be pulled, that is when I really started to be like, okay, like, dang, I'm not taking accountability for anything in my life.
You don't have to when you're seeking empathy like that.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's crazy. And sometimes we just get really caught up in ourselves.
Right.
We get so caught up in ourselves when the world is so much bigger. And when you can just maintain a level of presence and happiness within yourself, with who you are, and the fact that that everything vibrates around you, everything is energy. Like, everything is working in like, everything's conspiring with you. It's just a matter of your mindset is open enough to accept the signs and see them.
Yeah, and I think when you're in that level, like, if you're a business owner, this is something that with leadership that I'm struggling and I have to constantly learn working, because it's not really employees there. We always think of them as just employees, and that we can put another ad on Craigslist, another ad on Indeed.com, and we can get somebody else. They're disposable, when actually they're human beings. They have a soul,
Yes.
and I'm their leader. So that's why I believe in servant leadership so much. And it's such a struggle for me. Anything that challenges me and ticks me off is something I need to work on. So I find that in myself. It's like I'm almost seeking those things.
Yeah.
That will
uncomfortability,
make
that
me,
discomfort.
that will make me uncomfortable so that I can work on that. And that's something. I'm 45, going to be 46 in July. That's something that is, for me is, wow, I'm just learning this. It's so cool. How old are you?
I am 27.
Yeah, so that's awesome. You're going to be like so far ahead of, when you're 45, you're going to be a guru somewhere in Santa Fe or something.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I literally, it's funny because I learned in that same book, impatience is lack of understanding. And I've been so thwarted by impatience, like as of this last year, because of that reason. Like so many people tell me, you know a lot, and you're 27. And to me, it's like, I feel like I don't have enough time. It's like, I got to learn more. I got to do more. And again, it's that sense of that worry and it's not being present. It's only when like I'm in the present moment that I'm able to like do things like this, or you know what I mean? And I get caught up too in being in the future and being in the past and all these different things. But ultimately, like you said, no matter how old you are, it's an issue that always plagues you. Like it's an issue that'll always be around. And my upcoming book.
What would we have without struggle, though?
Exactly. No, exactly. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mark Manson.
Yes.
So he talks about this in his books. I don't know if you read his books.
He just wrote a new one, right?
Yeah. Everything is F.
Right.
Yeah. A book about hope.
Right.
And he talks about that, man. He talks about how we ultimately need hope as like a catalyst to do more. And when we don't have it, we're almost like this abyss of nothingness who are just looking for another problem. You know what I mean? And he talks about how, like you said, with the employees, don't treat people or don't treat things as a means to an end. Or don't treat people as a means to something. Treat it as a means to an end. So, if you are a business owner, you technically work for your employees. So you need to figure out what is going to work for them to allow their best effort to work under you, like to be able to give their best to you. Right. Because if you're not giving your best and, like I said, being fit for service for somebody else, they're not going to give you their best being somebody else.
And a lot of people don't look at that. I mean, you have to look at an employee and say spiritually, mentally, physically, where are they at?
Yes.
And how can I help them? And that's why I love coaching so much, and people need to stop getting to the point to where they're writing people up and, having these very stern conversations, but sitting them inside. I don't know how many times when I've set an employee down and I begin to coach him and then tears start flowing and we have these amazing discussions.
And male, female. You never knew what was going on.
I never knew. And it's like, now I can have empathy towards them and understand. And then I have resources where I can help them and assist them. Maybe you do need to take a week off. Maybe I'll do a week paid. I'll give you a week off. I'll pay you. You go get this straightened out. Figure this out.
Yeah.
Right. And then you come back and let's be the best version of yourself.
Yes.
But I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have sat down and had that 30, 45, minute conversation with them and delved into, and I had to show in love and servanthood that I was genuinely concerned about them. Mm-hmm. Not, why are you screwing up? You're not performing good.
Yes.
So I'm
not
having a talk with
them.
you about that.
And see, that's the thing too, is people are afraid to ask for things, and people are afraid to be open about what's going on in their lives. I know I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm guilty of putting out and fanning out all of my dirty laundry on everything. But we're coming into a time now where privacy is kind of a thing of the past a little bit. Like, and to be more vulnerable and to be more open will allow you, like I always hear, don't take the no from yourself. Like, don't take the no from yourself. So, like, don't be afraid to go up to somebody, your boss, and open up about what's going on. If they're a good boss, then they will listen to you. They will give you the help that you need. And it's funny because I was actually on LinkedIn the other day, and this person was talking about how he did just that. Him and his employee opened up about his community, or was it his commute issues and stuff like that. So he was able to let him work from home, and he was able to get like 3.5 more hours of work done every day just because he didn't have to commute. And the comments of hate were astounding me because I'm like, everybody was like, oh, for every person that is doing right, there's always that one person doing wrong, blah, blah, blah. They're taking advantage. So you've got to put this in place, and you've got to have this thing and this and this. And I just responded like, you get what you look for. If you want to sit there and look for every little piece of person who's taking advantage of your time, well, then you're doing a bad job of being a leader because you're hiring the people first off, who are those people? Like,
Right.
you're not doing the vetting properly, and you're not actually relating with people. You're just looking for people to do things for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And until you can develop, that's why I talk about like empathy for others, until you can develop a form of empathy to provide for other people, like you're always going to be stuck in that mode where it's like, oh, well, this person's taking advantage of me. This person's blah, blah, blah. And maybe they are, but it's up to you to take care of that virus.
You're the
inside.
leader.
You're the leader.
Yeah.
So not only do you can sit there and complain and moan about it and woe is me, like we're saying, you can
Right.
get people to feed that for you and be like, yeah, man, they're taking advantage of you. You need to do this and do that. Or you can have a conversation with the person and you can get to know what's going on in their life. Why are they not being more productive? Who are they? Are they married? Do they got kids? Do they have what are their ambitions? What are their dreams? And I can honestly say the best GMs that I've ever met, that I've ever worked under, from the day that I started, they started to train me to do their job. And that is the best thing that you can do for an employee, is to train them to do your job or see what their ambitions are so you can further help their aspirations. Because they're going to be more willing to go above and beyond for you if you're going to be willing to help them later on.
Yes, that's so true.
Than them just working for a darn paycheck.
Right.
And trying to figure that part out.
Right.
So it's one of those weird middle ground things that I try to bring to light a little bit with everything that I talk about.
No, I think that's awesome. we're going to take a break, but I want to get into a little bit about the book that you're writing. And then you have 5 things, and we're going to talk about it. Gratitude. What is it? Gratitude, momentum.
Gratitude for today, momentum for tomorrow, energy for the world, empathy for others, and awareness for ourselves.
And that's what we're going to get into right after this break.
Join us this week for another episode of the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, he interviews leading local business leaders that inspire the vision and spirit in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque. Listen or download this Sunday afternoon at 4 from your favorite podcasting app.
So we are here for the second half of the Albuquerque Business Podcast. We're with Sam with the PRA Network. We're going to get into, Sam, I want to get a little bit into gratitude, momentum, energy, empathy, and awareness. And then one of the things that I really want to get into, I think more than anything, is your new book. What are you calling what's the title?
Yes, it's called Jericho's Journey. And basically it involves with everything that you just said. It basically tells the entirety of gratitude for today, momentum for tomorrow, energy for the world, empathy for others, and awareness for ourselves. It's a breakdown of everything. And realistically, what it is, it breaks down everything with the example of cycles. So, everything is a cycle in the world. There's a water cycle, life cycle.
Right.
Like everything's a cycle. It's peaks and valleys. So if you can know that, you're already ahead of the curve, because you know that, I call them villains, any villains that arise, self-doubt, fear, distraction, comparison, all these other things. When you can figure out that they're just there temporarily, and you can have the tool belt necessary to just combat them when they come up, almost like a superhero. They never vanquish the villain, but the villain always comes back. It teaches them more. They get stronger. They get better. They whatever. And then
you need a villain.
They keep fighting. Yeah. Again, like we were saying, you need hope. You need a struggle. You need problems in your life in order to feel important, in order to feel like you're contributing. So it dives into all that, like about how it's just all a cycle. Like it's highs and lows all the time.
Right.
If you can know that, you're not going to be in the lows for too long. And I just incorporated like a short story to go with it, which is Jericho's Journey. And so basically this young man, similar to me, but not exact, he had struggles growing up, took care of his siblings, was always running everywhere, walking everywhere because he never had a car, just all these different things. He ends up running marathons, doing cycling, all these different things to help him become better and get to a better place in his life. He ends up becoming a really good runner, and he enters the Atacama Crossing Ultramarathon, which is an actual ultramarathon that's real. So it's a 6-stage race, and it's 7 days long. So these people actually go and they race across the Atacama Desert, which is the driest place on earth, and they go to hit these checkpoints. And one of them is like 50 miles roughly. So they go to these different bouts, and one of them, that 50-mile one, sometimes takes them over 24 hours. So they're running for over 24 hours.
Wow.
And so I really loved the concept of cycles with this and how to create that, because it's ultimately about how to maintain your sense of presence throughout the journey, which I think is like amazing.
Yeah, and I think like you were talking about that race, I think it's something, how grueling that is, and how you could talk to, I don't know if you read David Goggins' book, but...
I haven't read the book, but I know exactly what that is, yeah.
The book's called Can't Hurt Me, and And that's what he talks about. He goes, and it's true when you run, if a lot of people, do cross country and stuff like that, but you can get to runner's high and all that. But for me, what's even more important is the way that I feel whenever I'm getting that mental anguish.
Yes.
And then what my mind starts doing.
Yeah.
Like my mind tells me I need to quit. My mind's telling me like, you're out of shape. It just starts yelling at me. It cannot handle just this little bit of physical pain.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm turning into a little, crybaby, and it's so funny to me to see. And I think and that's something that I want to get into, because what is self-awareness? Like how can you, because we all have this journey. Mm-hmm. We can be proactive, we can be reactive, we talk about that, but we need the villain. We want to have that, we want to be the hero in everything that we do. Mm-hmm. But how are we self-aware enough when we hit those struggles, when we experience that pain, to be able to have that conversation inside of ourselves, to put ourselves back on track?
This is me. This is who I am. I need to be okay with it.
Right.
Ultimately, it takes a lot of trial and error. So the more you do, which is why they tell you the more you fail, the more successful you'll become. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that they're talking about money. They're talking about your form of that, your form of success. So fail often, get out there and just start failing as much as you possibly can, because ultimately what you're going to find is what you're good at. And I said, you suck at everything, but you'll find the thing that calls to you. And when you can find the thing that calls to you, you're going to want to get better in that. When you can become curious through the pain, that's the key.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
That's the key, because when you're not curious through the pain, you could care less what's going on. You just want to stop the pain.
Right.
But one thing for me, in order for me to become self-aware, because honestly, I have no real expertise in any one thing. The only expertise that I really have is just mastery within myself. I'm just honestly every single day trying to master another sense of different things that arise within me. And to reach that level of self-awareness, I had to almost lose my family. I had to go through all of these different things. Of course, I had to lose a lot of my family. I had to just experience a lot of failure, because there was a lot of things like music, you know what I mean? That was a big thing that I had to kind of just be no, this isn't me. Because I was really gung-ho about being the next big all-time conscious rapper.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you can't force anything. And nobody was telling me what I was really good at. They just said I was good at talking, which, that kind of can be not a compliment,
Right.
But the other thing that I loved doing was writing.
Right.
No matter if the songs were going to be played, no matter if I was going to be heard, I loved writing and getting my feelings out.
Right.
So if you can just do what calls to you, and you can just put that out into the world, you'll find your own self-awareness. But too many people are scared of opinions. So too many people won't take that step to really be who they are. They're too busy trying to be who they think everybody else needs them to be.
Or even as a leader, who their employees.
Yes, who they think they should be for their employees.
Right.
Instead of really being what makes them the essence of them.
And so their business is based around this false identity.
Dude, yes, that is exactly right. And that's why you get a lot of stress with those bosses, because they don't even know why they're doing it at that point. They're just so, man, we got to hit these numbers. Everything becomes this, and that, and the other thing. And then it's just so demanding, and it's not a very good environment to be in, and if you're a leader, and if you're listening to this and you're a business owner or anything, you have to create a good environment. You have to.
Culture's the number one.
If the culture is off, or if there's somebody not being heard, or if there is something going on, you will know, because you'll be suffering. You'll be stressed out. You'll be more stressed out.
It's so funny to me how I go into business and they'll have me consult and stuff like that, and I see an employee that's been there a long time that's such cancerous, but because they know their job and they feel like they're replaceable, they will let them ruin this person. Literally for 15, 18, 20 years has ruined your business, have caused you not to grow. You hate the person. You don't even talk to them hardly anymore, and yet you keep them on for what?
For what reason?
Yeah, it's because they know the position. But yeah, you may struggle for 6 months, a year, but I guarantee you in 6 months, a year, they're going to be good at what they do if you hire the right person.
Yes.
Number two, it's going to change your culture, and you do not realize how much a bad employee costs you on your ROI yearly.
Yes, and just for keeping them on.
Right, and how many people you lose that are good people because they hate that person.
And those, it's crazy because it trickles. Those people are probably looking for a lot of instant gratification in their regular day-to-day life.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So it trickles into their business. And so they're because this person is doing this, blah, blah, blah. then they're taken away from their family because they're too stressed out and they're having to deal with all these other issues.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like you've got to take yourself out of it and not be expecting things. Like I said, treat people as a means to an end, not as a means to get something. So like, don't treat your employees as a means to get more revenue. Don't use your employees as a means to get more profitability.
Right.
Use your employees as a means to create a better relationship for the culture in your business. Like that.
Organically, you don't have, these companies. I was just listening to a podcast earlier before we were over here, and they were talking about, some of the companies with the greatest culture that's out there. And all of them are hugely profitable. There's a reason for that.
The correlation, man. And the difference is, and it probably took those companies a lot more time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what people don't see. And that's why, that's honestly why I started my podcast too, is because so many people see the end result and compare their step 1 to other people's step 59.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you can't do that. You can't compare your expertise. Like, it's funny. I was playing Guitar Hero, actually. You can't play expert level for the first time you play. Like, you've got to go through the steps. You know what I mean? You can watch somebody play on expert.
Hours. I am so uncoordinated.
Yeah, so it's like,
I would never hit expert level.
So it's like if you're watching somebody play expert on Guitar Hero, and you're expecting to do that quickly, you're going to be so let down. You're going to be so disappointed, you're going to stop trying.
Right.
But if you start it easy, you build your confidence, you keep doing it, you put in that time and that effort, you put in that repetition, and you have the best intentions doing it. I'm just going to do this for me. Because it's going to make me feel good knowing that I could be on expert level one day.
Right.
You go in with the intention of just getting better. You're not going in with the intention of, I have to become expert. It's like, you know what? I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to get to expert. And if it doesn't happen, at least I tried my best. And it's the same way. Like, so many people.
But would you love the game if you could play expert mode immediately and you just win the game in 10 minutes? Would you even buy the game?
Exactly.
Would the game be popular?
Because then again, there's no problem.
Right.
There's no problem. There's nothing. There's no friction.
Right.
That's allowing you to grow. You know, and you said it perfectly, once you hit those mental struggles within and you're like, man, I don't want to do this. It seems like become curious at that point. You're like, man, why do I want to quit? I got to keep going. I can't think like that. Some people just get so discouraged and they're just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And ultimately, in the book, that's what some people do. They turn back, and some people in that actual ultra marathon do turn back. Some people get such blisters on their feet, they get infections, stuff like that, so they can't finish. But they have to be okay with where they are.
But they were at the point in their life, in an elite athlete, to be able to enter a race.
Yes.
And it didn't work out this year, but I guarantee they'll try the next year.
Yes.
And they failed, which is fine. I always say, for me, because I have a hard time failing, my ego gets involved in everything else, but I want to fail, like you said. John Maxwell wrote a book called Failing Forward, but I want to fail just for the simple reason is, if I look stupid, I know that's a part of me because my arrogance can come out. If you're a leader, we can be so egotistical to the point of being arrogant.
Know it all.
And think we're so above everybody else. And that's an issue that I face with daily because it's like, I don't have all the answers. And who do you think you are? Whether you believe in God or not or whatever, but I do. But, it's like God created us all equal. And if you believe in the stories in the Bible and you see Jesus and he came as, the ultimate, as the story, whether you believe it or not. But he came, he served, and then he sacrificed himself. It's a beautiful story of servant leadership. It's a beautiful story of failing. And then through that triumph, through that struggle, because you got to think about that. I mean, in this story, it talks about him being perfect and he had no sin. And when you look in that scenario and you look at that, it's like he was only here on, his ministry was 3 years?
Yeah.
So, and he was only here, but all 3 years in a supposedly perfect environment was all struggle and suffering.
And what did he give? He presented unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. Even the people that were going against him.
Yes. And it's crazy how people don't see the imperfections as perfection.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Man,
I can't remember the actual post, but I posted something about this too, and it said the only way that we can be perfect is to embrace our imperfection and to realize that that's what makes us perfect, because ultimately that grants you some humility. And when you can dispose humility out and vulnerability in the fact that you don't know everything, inherently it gives you all the answers, because you're like, I don't know anything, but I know how to get answers, and I know that if anybody is willing to help me with this or whatever, I'm more than willing to help you. I'm more than willing to show, empathy towards anything, and it makes you a humanized, normalized person. You're not this all-seeing, all-being perfect thing that can do no wrong. You're all of a sudden part of the congregation. You're a part of the people. You know what I mean? And too many people get this inflated and inflamed ego about oh yeah, I know this and I know this and I know this. So they get into teaching mode and coaching mode, and so instead of empathy mode, instead of actually feeling the other person. It's that's why like Tony Robbins and all them are so successful, because they listen first. Like Michael Ovitz said, and I think he got it from his dad or something, you have 2 ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so many people are quick to spew out the answers. So many people are quick to even ask questions. Not many people are quick to look inside themselves for their own answers. And that is like where the true, like you and that self-awareness comes out, and that true humility starts to show and exemplify in your actions, because it's like, okay, you know who you are, but you also know that you're not perfect. And you also know that, and I always say this, like, we are the path. Whatever you decide is right. Who is it? Henry Ford? If you think it's right, then it is. If you think it's wrong, then it is. That's true. Like, you are the path. So if you can just embrace that and know that nobody has all the answers, but we're in a world where you can be more open now than ever before and not be completely shunned by it, but be accepted by it. That level of unconditional love can totally transform you.
And I think that's an opportunity. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to. I was talking to a bunch of realtors the other day, and we were going over digital marketing in a conference. And one of the things I told them, I was like, all these realtors are out there in their high mileage BMWs trying to play this part, and have they're spending all their money on suits and watches and all this stuff. And I'm like, social media gives you such an opportunity. I was like, what if you put it out there like, I have an old car, I'm struggling, but here's what I'm trying to do. And you were just real vulnerable and honest. You would set yourself apart from all these people that are posing, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Social media, we want to always have our best life out there, our fake best life.
Yep.
And I'm like, it would be, people would watch that, I mean, put a YouTube channel out there, show what you're struggling with. If you're living in a car and you got a phone, show that.
You've got more opportunity than a lot of people. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I think our phones are like better than the computers that put us on the moon,
Yeah,
So.
and it's funny because my fiance and I were in Santa Fe the other weekend, and we were like, do you have your wallet? Do you have your phone? And I was like, I have my wallet. Where's my phone? And I was like, I think I'd rather lose my wallet than my phone at this point. But I took it back right away because I realized you can lock your screen.
Yeah,
but it's just funny how like we're at a point now where like our phones are
a part of
just
us.
a part of us. You
Right.
know what I mean? And they're like, you can create something from nothing, which is amazing. Like, it's
Right.
so amazing. You never had that capability before.
No, we are at a crossroads right now where Elon Musk said on the Joe Rogan podcast, he's like, basically we're cyborg because we have this phone hooked to us, and
It's like
we're
an
downloading
extension of us.
information. It's an extension of us. Yeah. And so many people are on social media. I mean, we're streaming right now live on Instagram.
Literally.
You've got your phone. I've got my phone.
Literally,
Hello.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we're literally online right now going live. This opportunity would have never. And you got to think about it. Even when I was a kid, I'm old. So when I was a little kid, they had these monster huge TV cameras. And to go live was such an issue. You'd have to have a big
production value of everything. Yeah.
It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to do what we're doing right now with a little phone.
Literally.
Yeah.
And just to go on like kind of what you were touching about like showing the flip side, like the living in a car, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever heard of the hero's journey?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
with Campbell.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it trickles down into any story you hear about, any children's book, any movie that you watch, any story that you've ever read. It's all encompassing.
Right.
And it's funny, that's like the premise that I use for the book too. It's just this hero's journey. Because if you can view your life as a hero's journey, there's an opportunity that you need to accept that brings you into a new situation.
I like
and
that.
so the opportunity is like you're back against the wall. You have no other options. Like, you're trying to figure out what to do, and then something comes up, like something that can ultimately change the course of your life. And you hit this opportunity, and you're like, do I accept it or do I not accept it? Most people don't accept it. Most people are comfortable living their daily 9 to 5.
Like you said, they don't want the responsibility of the acceptance.
Exactly. So once they accept it, they start to be put into a new situation. And what's funny about this is it actually does apply to your life. And so like the way that it works is, desire moves the story forward, which ultimately like any of our desires move our story forward. Conflict elicits a lot of emotion, which allows you to relate to the story. So our conflict elicits a lot of our emotion that can get out of whack sometimes. And then the character. So like if you can formulate this thing and create your own hero's journey within yourself, then the presence within the journey does become the beautiful thing.
Right.
You're not focused on the riches or this random weird outcome that you're putting in your own head. Even Jay Shetty says, you'll get there, but not in the way that you imagined. Like,
it's always that way, though.
I
love that quote because, I mean, think of it. Have you ever predicted your outcomes of the future?
Never.
Never.
And to go along with that, nothing that I've ever feared, that worst outcome fear, has ever happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're constantly in this weird fight or flight mode.
You know how many times I've been in the ocean and I've been afraid I'm going to get attacked by a great white, and it has never happened.
Oh man, I can honestly say I still fear that, and so I'm gonna have I'm going to have to do that.
But I mean, it's how many people, tens of thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands of people are in the ocean all day long, every day. The beach is full every day, just about almost. And, unless there's bad weather or something. And there are sharks swimming all around all the time. And I am still afraid of them. It's so funny.
It's so funny, man. And it's just weird. It's weird because I used to think that I was going to be on stage performing music. Right. Now it's like the ultimate thing that I want is to just be on stage to give out a good story that I know will resonate with
It's all
people.
art, though.
Exactly.
Whether you're on stage on Instagram Live or we're on stage on 99.9 The Beat, this radio station, or whether we're, it's all a form of creating, and long form talk like this is art.
It is, man. And too many people haven't found what allows them to create.
Right.
That's the problem. And so with everything that I encompass with the whole PRA and all of that, basically what it means is if you can cultivate gratitude just for today, that'll give you some momentum to go.
What does that look
tomorrow.
like gratitude just for today?
So gratitude just for today for me implies that you have a good perspective. So you're taking yourself out of your own head. You have a good perspective. You're opening yourself up to different perspectives. You have a growth mindset. If you don't already know what fixed and growth mindsets are, it's just basically, viewing opportunities instead of challenge, or viewing challenges as opportunities rather, and just developing that. Believe it or not, you've got to practice that, because I was in a fixed mindset for so long, believing that my challenge was my challenge, and that's all it was.
My ego, after I read that book by, I think is it Carol Drucker or something? I forgot her name, but the fixed mindset in growth mindset.
There's Carol S. Dweck.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
So you guys need to buy that book. You know what my ego did to me? It said, no, you've been in a growth mindset. You're fine. And so then I had to
that trickster, that magician. Yep.
I had to play with that over and over and over again. It's no, I'm fixed here. This is where I'm fixed. I'm fixed here. The reason I'm reacting this way is because I'm fixed.
Yes.
So gratitude, growth mindset.
So if you can cultivate a growth mindset, open yourself up to different perspectives, and take full accountability for where you are in your life, that'll help out a lot with your gratitude every single day. And the reason why I say that is I'm not preaching just to be this is the keys. These are the keys. It's just those are the things that I work on all day, every day. I tell myself that I need to be accountable for the decisions that I made this far, and I need to continue to have the accountability for the decisions that I make from now on. And then I open myself up to different perspectives. I try to look at people who are in a lesser position than I am, and I look at people who have more than I do, and I look at the different stories, and I try to open myself up to that. And then ultimately I develop a growth mindset, and I tell myself okay, well, where am I not viewing opportunities as, am I not viewing this opportunity, and am I not seeing this as a test to become more or to do more? And so I do those practice, and ultimately this is what the book is. The book breaks these down, it breaks each one down. So gratitude for today, when you can focus on those things, it will help your gratitude. When you can focus on gratitude today, it'll help shift into some momentum for tomorrow, which is what we all need. We need some momentum. And the best way that I know how to explain momentum is I used to play basketball. And so when we were down, or if you ever play sports, you're down, the odds are against you. The three things that you really need to focus on in those moments are what you have to do to carry out, the execution, the disciplinary execution that you have to do. You also have to form a correct plan of attack. So for basketball, if you're down 20 points and you have a minute left, you've got to be disciplined as heck. And you also have to develop the right plan of attack. So you can't just aimlessly start shooting baskets and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You have to have a blueprint.
You can't get emotional in that moment because you're trying to be disciplined.
Yes. And then you also got to have clarity and focus. So when you can incorporate those three things, and the reason why I say those things...
That's momentum, though.
Yes, exactly. And the reason why I say that is because that's how we would use momentum to come back in those 20 down games plus and come back with a minute left. So if you can have gratitude for today, it helps give you some momentum for tomorrow. And then when you have momentum for tomorrow, you can create more energy for the world. And when you can create more energy for the world, basically what that is it incorporates your belief system, your truth system, and your vibration and your frequency. So you can raise your vibration based on retelling your stories. We all have this narrative. When you're a kid, you're so you don't have any clutter. You don't have people telling you stuff based on their own fears, based on their own stuff. So based on somebody else's belief system, they could tell you, you shouldn't try that. You shouldn't do this. This is going to hurt you. You don't know my truth system, my belief system. And that's why we have different religions, different things, because people believe different things. So if you focus on what you believe is true to you, focus on that. You can focus on what you believe to be true, and you actually really truly believe it, and you can believe in yourself, because self-belief unlocks your superpower, in my opinion. Look at Spider-Man. As soon as he believes in himself, he lifts up all that stuff in the movie, and as soon as the superheroes believe in their powers, they can really wield them.
It's so funny how much we love. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
but
you're fine.
With the Marvel superheroes, it's all that, and you've got Batman and Warner Brothers. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like you just said, they didn't realize it until they got. But if you're a superhero and you have this unlimited power, you have this ton of power. What do they use their power for? To serve others.
Yes.
That's why we love the story so much.
They give back. They have humility to know that, and that's the difference between the hero and the villain.
Right.
The villain is it for personal gain and bad intentions. The hero is good intentions and unconditional love.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And it's crazy.
They're putting themselves at harm to help the betterment of mankind.
Just for another day.
Yeah.
Of peace.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
exactly,
until the next bout. Really is
right.
the thing. And so when you can raise your energy levels, and I'm really starting to dive more deeper into actual vibration and frequency, but when you can raise your vibration and frequency, that's basically the fundamental part of law of attraction, because we are all at a certain vibrational level.
Right.
And we vibrate with everything around us on this planet. And like nature has a certain vibration, certain things have a certain vibration. So that's why, like, if you are in a low vibration with somebody, you have very low energy, you're feeling very negative. When you're in a high vibration,
that's what you're going to attract.
Yes.
In relationships.
Yes, exactly.
Another person
and
that
so
vibrates
everybody's
with
like,
you.
I just need to think positively and I'll get positive things. It's like, no, you actually have to focus your energy on the right vibration. Because if you're coming at it from, I'm going to get this because I think positively, that's not a good vibration. That's actually a false, like, not truthful vibration. Truth is the highest vibration. When you can have truth within yourself, you will be at the highest vibration. You'll start to attract good things. And when you can have the right mindset and notice and be grateful and notice the signs, you start to build more momentum. And it all kind of like cycles through. That's why I created the whole cycle at the beginning, because this all cycles through. If you can learn this cycle system, it helps you out. And so empathy for others is really about relationships. So ultimately it's mental health, spiritual health, physical health, relationship, and purpose. That's what this is all about. And so relationships grant empathy. And through empathy, you can learn more about emotion, because it's not just in relationships in general, it's a relationship with yourself. So you've got to be familiar with emotions. Right. You've got to listen to them, respect them, know them. Like I always compare them as like a neighborhood friend. You're not going to just be rude and ignore someone at the door. And if you do, the emotion's going to keep knocking and it's going to keep getting bothersome until you open that door and you learn what they have to do.
Why do people go years of letting that emotion just knock on their door constantly over and over again? It's so funny. It's going to go away and come back. It's going to knock again.
Yes.
You're going to have that annoying neighbor.
So you might as well be friends with it. You might as well figure out how to help each other. Right. Because that mutual respect is going to show. You don't have to. I'm not telling you to just not feel bad all the time. I'm saying you've got to take the negative and let it tell you what it needs to tell you so that it can be on its way and you guys can have a great conversation and you can go back to your daily life.
Right, which I think is so important because people don't realize that. Like, we'll use the annoying neighbor analogy like you said in them knocking. Why are you afraid to have that conversation with that annoying neighbor? Yes. Whatever it may be, whether it's employer or whatever, sometimes you need to have a conversation. And sometimes you need to part ways. And that's what I was getting to earlier. I told you, like, right before I came here, that's why I knew we were going to have a great conversation. Right before here, I had somebody I had to talk to, and I had to do that. I had to say, as a client for business or whatever, but it was just so low vibration, so needy. If you get somebody in your life that's extremely needy and they're constantly needing you and pulling energy out of you, they call them like energy vampires or something like that. Yeah. Then you've got to find a way that you can deal with that in love. I'm not talking about deal with it, because when we say deal, well, I just deal with it. So I just give in and let them. Yes, exactly. You have to address it. And I think that's something that's so important when it comes to empathy, because we don't look at the reverse side of it. I had to say, obviously, you're not happy with what's going on in this circumstance. Obviously, you're looking for a different outcome that I cannot provide. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage you to seek, business elsewhere. I don't need somebody in my life that's going to be that. If they're not happy, they're not happy. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to bend over backwards to the point to where I'm giving up myself and I'm allowing it to affect my energy and my emotion.
You're almost doing them a disservice.
Yes.
By going above and beyond that much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like, you actually deployed a lot of leadership there, because it's like, obviously I'm not helping you in the way that you need.
Right.
But I know somebody that, and you're still being of service.
Right.
With unconditional love. Like, you're not judging them for being a bad client, or you're judging them for needing you or whatever. You're like, no, this is just who you are, and I accept that. So I'm going to find somebody who takes that and knows how to do something with it, because I want you to succeed, and I want to succeed, and we all want to succeed, and I want to help you. And that's exactly what you did.
I even took to the point of the work, because I wanted to always create value. So my whole thing was, the work that was done, the things that were done, don't worry about that last invoice you're going to get. Don't worry about that. Because I want to end it with the way we're...
Like an open door policy almost.
Yeah. Like, so, you know what? I provided value to the very end.
Yeah.
And in the relationship, I want to make sure that I'm not coming off of it, because so many people in relationships in so many bad ways. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast today. It had Aubrey Marcus, Kyle Kingston, and Paul Check. It was on Paul Check's podcast. It just came out this morning.
Really?
And I'm listening to it,
and
they were talking about, having, and we're not going to get into this part, but they were talking about monogamy and relationships and stuff, social media, and then how many people live, like they're talking about athletes that have like 5 burner phones for 5 different women.
Jeez.
And then how,
that's probably very accurate
struggling, and then they're struggling in their sport and then they were talking about, let's get into gratitude, momentum, energy, empathy, and then awareness.
Yes. Okay. So, and then lastly on the whole relationship thing, with that, it's all about emotion, exposure, and presence, like we were talking about. You have to be in the present moment. You have to constantly expose yourself to other people's stories, other people's, ways of thinking, other people's values. You have to expose yourself to different levels of discomfort, different everything, in order to form a relationship with yourself. And you have to be you have to be very familiar with your emotions in order to cultivate better relationships in your life. The reason why I say those 3 things too, everything always has like 3 little things that you could focus on, but the reason why I focus on those 3 things in general is because those things in general help me feel better with myself, become more at peace with just where I am and the stuff that I've done so far, because it's not easy, raising 2 kids, like doing all this stuff, like everything. And granted, it's all stuff that I put on myself, but still, like, to maintain that level of that sense of like, today is a good day to die. If I were to die.
Exactly.
Like that, if you can say that to yourself every day, then you're winning. Like you've won, in my opinion. But so many people can't say that because they're afraid of death. Like they're afraid to die today because they haven't done everything they want to do. So you got to create better relationship with yourself, and you have to strengthen the relationships that are with other people that are helping push you in the stuff that you want. You know what I mean? And that ultimately, when you form your truth system and the right energies and stuff like that, it'll all kind of make sense at that point when you're strengthening that. And then lastly, awareness. So awareness is like, you've got to become, it's like finding your purpose, ultimately, when you become self-aware. Because when you become self-aware, you know how to deploy that and let that become a purposeful thing for you to like help.
And that's being a leader, is taking that self-awareness and then deploying it to others.
Exactly. So in order to, I feel, for me, to develop my own sense of self-awareness, I work on my levels of humility. So just admitting when I don't know something, or that I'm not capable in some certain aspect, but I'm more than willing to learn, and being a lifelong learner and admitting that, as opposed to admitting to have all the answers, is far better for me and has allowed me to become more familiar with who I am. And then in addition to that, following your passion and incorporating it into your daily life, and then being okay with whatever process works for you. Because the struggle, like you said, is constant. That's the only thing that you're gonna get. That's the only thing that's guaranteed, is the struggle.
Right.
So when you can formulate a process that works for you, like let's say, you just have a hard time being in the middle of the day, so you have to develop a routine where you work out, you do all these stuff, like all this stuff. If that process works for you, you're good.
Find your own process too. So many people,
your process.
I'll look at Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL dude, and he wrote all these Dichotomy of Leadership and all these books. Extreme Ownership, great, amazing stuff. Listen to his podcast. He takes a picture every morning on Twitter at 4:30 a.m. and he works out every day. And he takes a picture of his watch. Well, one, he's probably using that to hold himself accountable, but he's probably done that. I mean, he's like elite Navy SEAL dude, officer in charge of, training for Navy SEAL. So, I mean, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
But I'll see so many people be like taking pictures of their watch, like they're jumping on the bandwagon,
Yeah.
But they're really night owls.
Yeah,
but because Jocko gets up at 4:30,
because of who they admire, does things.
Yeah. But that may not be your process. Maybe it is.
And that may not have been his process at the beginning.
Yes.
Again, you're comparing your level 1 to their level 57. Like, he's on a totally different level.
Yes,
like, why are you trying to just master everything right off the bat if you don't develop fundamentals? Like, and you actually posted this.
Right.
Like, when you skip steps, like, hinders the mastery of the craft.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to become a master, and there's debates on like, you got to put in the 10,000 hours, and it's not actually 10,000 hours and blah 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 or whatever, but the moral of it is, like, you've got to find, okay, so like all of these successful people that you love to watch, they weren't focused on the success, they were focused on the process, and they kept doing what process worked for them until it ultimately like transmuted into something more.
Right.
But ultimately they stuck with something that they were passionate about, and they formed a process around it. Whether, like, if you hate your job but you love to draw, if you're starting your first and last hour of the day drawing, everything else, and then you are actually loving the process in between, like you're constantly learning about drawing, you're taking every opportunity you can, or whatever. When you find out your process, you don't even necessarily need to quit your 9-to-5 job. Like, you can literally still find a way to incorporate things in your process.
Yeah, it's so silly to me because, and this, Sam, it's like, okay, you love to draw. Do you know how many people out there that are making children's book? Offer to draw the illustrations for free and just put your name at the end.
Yes.
Draw all the illustrations. Do it for free. What are you doing at night anyways besides binge watching Netflix? Gary Vee talks about that all the time. He's like, go intern somewhere for free. You know, like he had question and answer. It was really cool.
I love when he does that.
PM random and all that. And he told the guy, he's like, I'm giving you $1,000. You're moving to LA right now. You're getting out of your mom's house. I'm PayPal. What's your PayPal? He did it right there. He's like, start packing right now. You're going to go Twitter live.
I love Gary, dude.
Yeah. But he's like, I would do what I do now if I got paid zero money.
Exactly.
He goes, and he honestly believes this, and I believe him honestly. It has nothing to do with the money.
Nothing.
It's the journey.
Yes.
That's what he's after.
And it's funny because everybody thinks it's about the money when the money is a byproduct that they barely even pay attention to.
Yes.
Like if you notice the most successful people in the world with all of the money, the only time they ever utilize that money is for something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
So they will either give back to a charity or they'll start a foundation or they'll do something. But the majority of that money either just goes back into the business or it goes to one thing that they always wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they never...
But even it's so funny because people that have money and the people that don't have money. I was reading this from T. Harvey Eker or something. It was called The Millionaire Mindset. He was talking about this. He goes, majority of the money given to charities in the world are by people that have money. Majority of poor people don't give anything. They don't help out. They're all about themselves.
And they're all complaining about how they have no money.
Yeah, I mean, look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates could literally, he was, I don't think now Jeff Bezos is, but he was the richest man in the world. He started the Melinda Gates. He's curing child early birth in Africa. They've already figured that out, him and his wife. He's really, and they've made the promise. They gave that where they had billionaires sign a thing saying they're going to give all their money away.
That's awesome.
You know, when they die. He has took billions upon billions of dollars and hit hard issues in the world and put all of this that you have in your book. That's his journey. That's what he wants to end with. Not that he owned Microsoft.
Yes.
Not that he made the Xbox.
Yes.
Not that he was a billionaire.
It's to give people their ability to do that for themselves. That's really the win, man. Like if you can, and that's what I love to do is, and I've always done it inherently, like without realizing it, is I've always built people up. Not like to just inflate them, but I've always seen kind of the potential within somebody, and then I've noticed that they're scared for some reason. And so one thing that I've always done and tried to do is just go for what I believe is right. And honestly, ever since I decided to do all of this, my life has gotten extremely harder.
I think that's a great question to ask. I do that. Like, why am I afraid of this? Or what am I scared of in this?
It's like, why am I afraid? And fear is the biggest, like so many things stem from fear, like the comparison to other people, the distractions of watching Netflix as opposed to doing what you should be doing to carry out your dreams. All these, in my book, all the villains are, fear is the ultimate villain, unleashes a bunch of inflictions like self-doubt, self-worth, negative self-worth, self-talk, comparison, all these different things that dishes out at you. And that's what Jericho goes through in his race. He's comparing himself to other racers. Or to other marathon runners. He's comparing himself to the last ones that he's done. Why is this one so much harder? I prepared my whole life for that. Like he's going through all these different bouts of villains, and he's seeing that just looking at the landscape is amazing because it's otherworldly. Like there's the way that they describe it on Google and stuff. Like if you go to this place or you Google it, there's like stuff that they use for NASA tests because it's just the same terrain as like Mars. So they test all the rovers on that landscape. There's just salt flats that have just these incredible designs. There's the Rainbow Valley, and it's just this beautiful valley that just has these different minerals that make it look like it's a rainbow. They have snow-capped volcanoes. Like it's so diverse there, and it gets so cold at night and so hot in the morning that like he is able to realize that it's not about any of this. It's about right now. Like,
but that diversity creates the beauty.
Yes. And so that's what he realizes is like without this struggle, without this thing that I'm doing, without this, in essence, this problem that I think is my pain, I'm ultimately turning this into my self-awareness, like who I am. Like this is my journey. And then after that, after the race, he decides, I'm going to tackle, cause there's 4 races in total in different places. And he decides, I'm going to do all 4 races now. Like I'm going to go home, I'm going to talk about my experience, and then I'm going to go do another one.
Right.
And that's really what it's about. It's a cycle. Like it's a cycle. You're going to have lows. You're going to have these moments of feeling just empty and alone and whatever. But when you can realize that that's not permanent, because nothing is permanent really. I mean, technically not even death is permanent because we move on. Like our consciousness moves on. Right. The only thing that is permanent really is like what you choose to revel in. You know what I mean? And it's ultimately like if you can find a process that works for you, I always say, form your work around your life, not your life around your work. You know what I mean? Like, or is it the other way around? I don't know. But either way, like so many people they feel like they got to get up, go to work, come home, and there's nothing there. you know, and I know that I felt like that for the longest time. Without music, that's how I felt. And it took literally me having, I always say, and I'm sure I think this is a real saying, idle hands are the devil's playthings.
Right.
But it's true, man. Like the more idle time I had, the more free time I had, the more time I had to complain, the more time I had to not do anything, which ultimately, if you know anything about investing, even if you have like zero in your bank account, you'll still get a fee.
Right.
And that fee will compound over time if you just leave nothing. If you leave nothing in a bank account, you will have negative dollars.
Right.
And you'll be well in the negatives 10 years from now. If you keep putting little amounts, aka making small adjustments every single day, you'll compound in the right direction, which we were talking about earlier. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that will multiply.
Oh.
And all of a sudden you hear of all these people, these overnight success stories, when realistically, if you dive into these overnight success stories, it's 10 years worth of catalogs of failure and not knowing what to do, emptiness and loneliness and not knowing who they were and process and all these different things. And so like the reason why I developed kind of my own little spin on everything is because I got tired of seeing people always feel like they needed to be an entrepreneur. Always feeling like they needed to create a business just to be happy. Like, once I create this business, I'll have enough money to pay my bills and I'll be happy. Like, well, sometimes the reason you're not being able to pay your bills is because of your other habits.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I know for me, like, all of my past actions allowed me to create detrimental habits that...
Well, yeah, we love to, and we'll have to get into this, but we love to self-sabotage ourselves.
We love it, man. We love it. We love it. I think it honestly, like, almost makes us feel important in some way. Because it's like, okay, I can sabotage my life so that I can be the center of attention now.
Right.
Like, so that I can finally get the attention and the acceptance that I crave. Because so many people don't feel accepted.
No.
So many people don't feel loved.
Especially nowadays. And, you know, and it's interesting to me, and I know this is extremely controversial, but you're seeing all these subgenres, you know, like humans are dividing themselves into all these different type of subgenres, you know, and identifying here, and my tribe is this. You know, they're just seeking this identity where it's like, don't label yourself. Stop identifying through your label. I tell people that all the time. I was like, yeah, it's good to be, you know, it's good to be proud if you're this or you're that or whatever it may be, you know, but at the end of the day, you are you, and specifically you, and God created you just for you, and put a label on you and then try to identify through that label, then you're living up to some expectation a lot of times.
Yes,
that
it's a false expectation.
It's a false expectation. And who invented the label? And then now it's like you got to climb up that mountain and give your firstborn and worship that God to appease him. But guess what? That firstborn isn't good enough. So now, and this label becomes, they worship it like a god. Yeah. This label, it sits up there and just constantly bowing down to it. Now, what have we created? Well, you don't like my label. So what am I going to do to you? Well, I need to silence you. The God's not pleased.
Yep.
So, you know, okay, so now I'm tribal, you're tribal. Let's go to war. You know, you're against my label.
Yes.
You know, and that's world peace in and of itself. And that's why I love what you put about, you know, having that energy, you know, to change the world. And making that point to where you say, how can I impact others?
Yeah. And it's crazy because so many people say like, oh, if you want to change the world, change yourself. That's exactly what it is. Like, just put out good energy into the world. Like, because you will attract it. And like I say, like, you know, and everybody says it, like, you get what you look for. If you're constantly, like, if you are identifying yourself as a hammer, what do hammers do? They pound nails. Right. So like, if you are identifying yourself as a hammer, you're going to always be looking for the next nail.
Yep, exactly.
But if you transfer that energy and you view yourself as a beautiful, like, being of consciousness, you're not looking for hammers. Like, you're not looking for problems. Like, you will get problems because you're ultimately, you know, growing, but you'll know how to deal with them. And you're not going to be constantly, like, attacking problems. Like, it's the next thing to get to my identity. And I did that too, where I created this false expectation and this false sense of identity where I'm going to be a rapper. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's going to play out like this. And every single time somebody would ask for my attention or ask for help for something or whatever, you're taking away from my identity. You're taking away from what's going to ultimately get you a Bentley and get you all these cool things, and you're taking away from me. So I went to war with the people in my own life. Like, I went to war with myself.
Yeah, because they're going against your false expectations.
Yes, exactly.
Even your own family.
And going back to, like, you know, the ego is a magician, man. It can manifest into into all kinds of different things that are going to make you feel like you're justified in what you're doing.
And then you have to justify it.
Yeah, because
the talk I had last night, it was like...
you're so thwarted.
Yes, yeah, and I was recognizing myself. Kyle Kingsbury talks about this, like, just take a knee, and just take a knee.
Take yourself out.
Why do you have to defend yourself when deep down inside you know you're wrong?
I do that with my fiance all the time.
I know, like, yeah, that's the conversation I was having. It's like, at the end of the day, the expectations I put on you or you put on me, they're false because you don't know
don't
know what's going in my head, and I don't know what's going in your head at all. This is a separate human being.
That's such a like real thing too, because we always put those expectations.
The
on
worst
people.
is for me, and I don't know about you, but I read all these books. I have all the answers. I'm the teacher. I need a student. So, I'm way up here and you're way down there, you know.
Who's the next person I'm going to speak with?
Or like, especially like in a relationship like you're talking about, it's like, no. I can manipulate this where I'm always right.
How can I coerce this to where you see the way I'm seeing?
Yeah, exactly. And then I want your actions to respond to the way that I feel like you should be.
And that's not unconditional love.
No, it's not.
That's not. That's manipulation. That's something totally different.
Why do I need to have everybody on my journey?
Yes. Oh my gosh, just that sense of acceptance for everyone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not letting people run all over you or anything like that. Like obviously, like if you need to take a stance, you do so with love, with kindness. But you don't. I mean, you don't let people walk all over you. Obviously, like you don't let people just like totally shun you and do all these things. But you know how to do it at that point. Like you know, like look, I'm not trying to speak down to you. I'm not trying to create any sense of friction or anything like that. But I need to let you know how I'm feeling, and I need to let you know what's going on as far as my sense of things, like my side of things, because with that level of communication, and when you over communicate, it's so much better to over communicate than to not communicate at all. Because when you're not communicating, it's like playing that telephone game where you're 14 kids down the line and the message is nothing what you thought what it originally was. You know what I'm saying? But if you over communicate and you keep putting in more facts and more facts and more facts, it's going to be like more so in depth about what the original thing was. Like if people add something that strengthens the conversation, you're going to have a pretty good little message at the end of that telephone thing. In order to like do that, we've got to take a step back, get ourselves out of our own head. And I was saying, I do that with my fiance all the time. It's like she'll say something, it hits me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're not listening to me, or blah blah blah. Like, how could you not? Or we get into this weird argument, and then in the moments where I stay silent, I'm like, what was I expecting? Like, just expecting this amazing thing, like this amazing conversation, no friction, whatever.
Like for me in that situation, because I get so emotional, I'm like sanguine type personality. What I have to do is step back, like wait another day,
and then come back.
And then I write down how I'm feeling, like on a piece of paper. How am I feeling about this situation? I write it all down, the feelings. And then I make a column next to that, just on a blank piece of paper. I make a column next to that, and then I write, how can I respond to each of these feelings in love? And then I write that down.
That's a really good exercise.
Because so then I take a picture on my phone of just the one column, and then I review it over and over again before I have the conversation.
That's a really good method.
Yeah, because I know my emotions will get in the way, and my ego will manipulate, and I'll win but lose. And I've won so many times, but actually lost.
And I think Einstein, says something about that, where he says, like, you can't solve a problem on the same level it was created.
Yes.
And I firmly believe that. Like, you can't.
Well, the higher vibration is love. It's the ultimate vibration.
Exactly. So if you're in a vibration that's totally frustrated and you're going back and forth with that person, you're not going to create a solution or create anything that's going to be above what that resonance level is.
Exactly.
So you're doing that's an amazing example of doing something, taking yourself out and regaining that level of energy and that vibration, so you can put that energy out into the world and raise that whole
Well, if I can come into that way, for me, it's like, I know if I can calm my emotion down and I can come into it with the true intention of love, the outcome's going to be love. And now that outcome may turn out bad,
but it was done with the right intention.
But I know I can look back and say, I know this was done right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can look back and not feel like any type of way other than like this is exactly.
Because the responsibility for them is on them.
Yeah.
The outcome is on them.
All of our reactions are based on what we choose to react on.
Exactly. And so at the end of the day, and my personality is really easy not to hold a grudge. I don't hold grudges with people. I can dump people, not in a bad way, but
you can detach versus
I can see
isolate.
somebody that's gone through, I'm very forgiving, but at the end of the day, I also know that flip side is to be very manipulative. So the only way I'm going to solve that, the fear, I think it's the fear probably more than anything, like on your journey you're talking about, the only way I'm going to solve that is to inject love all over it. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about that. It's like, perfect love casts out fear. And I always remember that all the time, so it's like, so the opposite of fear is love. The opposite of love is fear. And if you're fearing, you're not loving.
Exactly.
So that's my viewpoint on it. So if I'm being manipulative, if my ego's in place, if I'm getting extremely emotional and being really sharp with my words, that's fear. So how can I come back
because
in
you're
love?
hoping that something doesn't happen. happen. Like you're hoping.
Yes,
Instead of having faith based on your effort, that like all of the effort that you put forth, like Hal Elrod talks about this. He calls it the miracle equation. He says like faith fuels the effort and effort feeds the faith. And so instead of counting on hope, because hope is based out of fear, when we hope for something to happen or when we hope something doesn't happen, we're fearful that it might or might not. So it's like when you can deploy just insane amounts of effort, that'll in turn strengthen your amount of faith within what you're doing. I think even Aubrey Marcus mentions, the sun does not judge itself based on the shadows that it casts. You know what I mean? And that's like insane because it's like
when you really think about it, because the sun it's casting a shadow.
Yes, that's ultimately what it's doing, but it doesn't judge itself based on that. You know? And like you said, like when you can do things out of love, you're not judging yourself based on that action that you did because it was done with the right intentions. It wasn't done based out of this coercion of this transactional relationship. It's based on something where it's a means to an end. Like Mark Manson's saying, like, you're treating somebody with the means to an end with unconditional love. And that is like so powerful, man.
And it relieves you, regardless of the outcome, you don't feel guilty.
You don't. And you can feel released of like all this stuff tying you down and weighing you down. And in my book, I talk about, stripping like the smaller weight because it's like you need the bigger, heavier weights to make those micro tears to get you to bigger and stronger, like those mental micro tears. And you know what I mean? If you're constantly worried about like all of this extra poundage, like you got to strip all that and you got to start focusing on like how to get to that next level of strength within your mentality. And I think a lot of us are kind of scared to strip a lot of the smaller weight because we're fearful of like the unknown or we're fearful of like that next stage. You know what I mean? When in reality, if you've been listening to the conversation, like you've got to fail often. So it's trial and error.
Hurry
man.
And
like,
get it over with.
You can't I was always the type of person where in school I would always volunteer to go first. Mostly back then because I just wanted to get it over with. But then I realized that like, if I go first, I get an advantage. It's like I get the first-hand experience before anybody else. So then I can take a second experience right away and not be afraid of it. You know what I mean? So many people are scared to just jump and take that leap of faith in themselves. And I just was like, you know what? If I take this leap of faith and I completely fall off or fail or whatever, then I'm right back where I started. Like there's really no fear in doing it, And so many people wait until they have all these things that they could lose, and then they're like, oh man, like never taken a big risk in my life, so I'm really afraid now. Whereas like if you were to just continue to keep taking risks, you might be in a better position.
Yeah, but because, and I think a lot of it, I was thinking that in pertaining, to my relationship, it's the same scenario. It's like, why do you think taking a risk is going to end? This is really good. I'm getting this from you. So this isn't like my takeaway for me today from you. So thank you. Why do I always think negative worst case scenario when I want to take a risk? Why do I feel like it's always going to go super bad for me?
It's like when in reality, and I'm sure you follow Will Smith. Did you see his Grand Canyon jump?
No, I didn't see that one.
Okay, so he jumped from the Grand Canyon on his 50th birthday, and he jumped from a helicopter. He bungee jumped from a helicopter into the Grand Canyon, and he was freaking out beforehand, but he said, and I put this in my book, he says, on the opposite side of fear is bliss. It's like, my goodness, like if you think about all the times that you were afraid to do something, how good did you feel afterward?
Yes.
Even if it's something that's totally terrible, and like let's say, for example, like it's death, right? Like let's say you lost a loved one. You fear that you would lose that person, and you finally did. So now you're just totally distraught. But on the other side of that, who does it bring together? It brings together every single person in that family. It brings together everyone. It unites them. At least for all of the deaths in my family, it has. It's strengthened our bond. It's made us appreciate each other more. And I feel like if we can learn anything from the mistakes that we make, it's that the ultimate level of just being satisfied with who you are is overcoming fear after one fear after another.
And I think anything with loss, ultimately, like your first step, it should create gratitude.
Yes.
All loss should create gratitude.
Because it ultimately gives you a different perspective. It gives you a different perspective to look at. Like, we don't all live forever. Oh my goodness gracious. And, I'm not old by any means. I'm 27 years old, but I do think about death in the most beautiful sense. And it's hard for me, like right now my dog is sick. So like, it's hard for me to really like, cause I get into that fear mode where it's like the worst thing could possibly happen. But then again, like I posted today, if I could continue to just put in the most amount of effort, like feed my faith, whatever is supposed to happen is supposed to happen.
And whether it's with a dog, a child, because a lot of dogs are like our children. I posted a picture today with them.
That's why I said it, because I was like, man, I was feeling emotional about my dog.
But I mean, each of these relationships we have in our life, even if they fail or there's loss, at the end, it's there to evolve us to a higher conscious. And that's what that relationship was put there for. And you can appreciate that and have gratitude for that relationship. Even if it lasted 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, at the end, I appreciate it. Maybe because I know in that relationship, it helped me be a better person because I learned so much. And I need to be, like a breakup. Those are like the worst things, like you divorce your wife. I went through a divorce. You divorce your wife, whatever. But I can look back now and say, those 20 years I was married,
they gave you something.
It gave me so much. I wouldn't be even close to the person that I am now if I didn't understand, And then I look at myself back then and I look at myself now, and it's like, I feel sorry for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having to put up with me,
yes.
Because I've grown so much now, and I view it like in the sense of thank you for having this opportunity. Even though the relationship's done, it's completely gone.
It's like Ariana Grande. What? Thank you. Next.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Next. I learned this from this dude. I learned this from this.
But I can still have love in the sense of knowing that evolved me and helped me become a better person. It also realized what type of person I need to be in a relationship with.
Yeah.
So now I'm becoming more self-aware because of that failed relationship.
Yeah, and what's funny is it's crazy how when we look back on ourselves, we start to realize how much we were judging other people or judging other things or judging just the place in our life based on where we were within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I always call it like the mirror of judgment, and like based on what you're judging is a complete reflection of how you view yourself.
Yes.
So if you are seeing your life like, oh man, I judge this person's life, or this person's doing it wrong, this person's blah, 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 that's exactly how you view yourself, and that's exactly what you're insecure about. So like the things that, people are nitpicking you on or whatever, like ultimately they're just unhappy with that part in themselves. And so when you can like completely not judge yourself and accept yourself and learn and grow, and again, gain that level of self-awareness through humility and admitting like, look, man, like I feel bad because I was a crappy person before, like my goodness.
And
like,
take 100% responsibility.
Yes, just the accountability for everything, and all of that, literally, it cycles through.
Right.
It cycles through. And that's all of this is like been like all of my life compacted, but in this past year, it's been like completely concentrated into like these terms, into everything. And so this is something that like I completely use on a daily basis, that it just helps me be a person.
I think it's ultimately tangible. I mean, gratitude, momentum, energy, empathy, and awareness. Well, Sam, we've gone on to this for over an hour and a half. I want to make sure everybody follows you, everybody listen to your podcast. So will you give plugs on all you're on Instagram mostly?
I'm on everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see you mostly on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm on everything. I think everybody sees me on Instagram mostly because everybody's on Instagram. But I'm on, LinkedIn avidly. I'm posting like every 4 hours on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have a full-length blog on Facebook. I have a full-length blog on Medium. So like literally, I'm doing full-length blogs. I'm doing YouTube videos. If you guys want to get into everything, you guys can go to my Instagram or any of my bios. S Martinez IV. It's literally, the link is in any of my bios.
What's S Martinez?
Yeah, so S Martinez IV. It's just S Sam.
So and then I and a V, like a
lowercase, all lowercase. So
okay.
S Martinez and then Roman numeral IV, but no dash or anything, just all together. And so yeah, you guys can reach me there, and then you guys can get through to all of the access on everything. And ultimately what I'm trying to create in this next year is a group, so that I can have just a group of people who are experts in certain things, and anybody who I come across that's having issues with something, I can point them in that person's direction, help them out, help me help somebody else.
Right.
So that's ultimately, I just want to be an avenue. I want to be an avenue, because I never had that. I never had everybody that I've received offers to get help from has asked me for some sort of payment, which I get that you need to invest in yourself, but I never had guidance. Like I never had parents to help me.
True unconditional love.
Yeah, like I never had.
It was put out there with nothing.
Exactly.
No strings attached.
Exactly. And that's what I want to provide for people. I want to provide a level of acceptance so that you can be yourself and be okay with that.
How would they get on your podcast?
Just reach out to me. Honestly, just send me a message and tell me, and we'll just talk.
And if they want to download the podcast, where's the best?
Anywhere. So you guys can go, it's on all major platforms, so Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, everything. You Apple, everything. You guys can go to the link in my bio. It'll have everything there.
Okay,
everything.
Cool, perfect.
But yeah.
And if they want to reach out to you, that's all on there too. They can DM you or anything.
Anywhere, man.
I mean, we're DMing on Instagram. So.
Yeah, so yeah. And that's what I love to do, is just DM people and just talk with people directly. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube even, find me, reach out to me, and we'll get you on the podcast. We'll talk about your story. Ultimately, what I've been doing is getting people that I see really good potential in. They're doing big things now, so I have their bio story. So I'm like the first person to get their full-length interview and who they are, what they're starting off. Yeah, and so I had a knack for doing that with rappers, where I would like the Lil Pumps and all those people. I would like be like, man, this guy's gonna be big in a few years, and then he would blow up or something. So I was like, I want to do that with people, and if anybody I see potential in or something, or is doing something beyond themselves, I want to get that first thing, so that when they become the next Tony Robbins, I have the original story, and I believed in them from the beginning. So that's really that's
thing. Awesome. That's so good. Well, Sam, I appreciate you being on the podcast. This was awesome. Yeah. Amazing talk. I encourage people to go back and listen to it over and over again. I appreciate you and the energy that you're putting in Albuquerque. We know the struggles that New Mexico is facing, and we need a higher vibration in this state, and especially in Albuquerque. You know, I just saw 2 days ago, I think it was an Albuquerque Journal, the number one type for people wanting to travel here is how bad is the crime? You know, how bad is the crime in New Mexico? How bad is the crime in Albuquerque? The number one type, if you just go to Google and type in Albuquerque, it's police. So, you know, we have such this low vibration that is almost like a dark cloud over us. So you don't realize how important your voice is in a community like this, because the only way we're going to change this, is if the leadership has a higher vibration, if the leadership would stop being so selfish and so self-concerned. And I had Lawrence Chavez on, and he talked about that the pie could get bigger, abundance mentality. And it's so beautiful, you know, because it's true, the pie can get bigger. I don't need to steal from you. You don't need to steal from me. And whether it's you stealing my bicycle seat, you know, because you can, or whether it's you trying to, you know, sabotage my business. At the end of the day, I want to get to the point to where I wish you success, you wish me success, and we just grab as big of the piece of the pie as we can all together, and we grow. Because when you're in that, like you said, when you're in those final stages of your life, you're not going to look at the things that you've acquired. You're not going to want, give me my Bentley key so I can hold on to it when I die.
Yeah, just one more second. Just want to hear it. I want to hear the lock one more time.
You're so passionate about Bentleys, yeah.
Unless that's literally what you revolved your whole life on, like the entire, and you have like every single Bentley, like collector's editions and stuff. And
yeah, you know, I'm a rapper. I've got this Bentley. I need, right when I pass, I want 2 girls twerking on me, you know.
Yes.
You're not going to be thinking about any of that. Nope. What you're going to want is your friends, your family, those closest to you. And so, Sam, I want to appreciate you. I want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing. It's making a huge impact. I know all of us in this, we sometimes get discouraged. So if you do get discouraged, keep doing what you're doing, because at the end of the day, it's these voices that are out there that will change our community. And that's what we want to do, is take that energy and change the world. And that's what it's about. So thank you, Sam.
That friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yes. You know? Yes, exactly. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Please go to my website, abqpodcast.com. That's abqpodcast.com. I have all the past shows on there. If you want to be on the podcast, hit me up. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm at abq Jason Rigby. You can respond through, it's jason@abqpodcast.com is my email. We'd love to have a conversation with you through that. If you know someone that's changing, doing any of these, gratitude, momentum, energy, empathy, awareness, please don't hesitate to get a hold of Samurai. We'd be more than happy to talk with you on that. Thank you guys, and have an amazing day.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thank you to our sponsor, DukeCityMarketing.com. Please go to abqpodcast.com, where you can get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner in Albuquerque.